How many of you have been to the mountaintop and seen the promised land? Martin Luther King Jr. in his I Have a Dream was really about a vision. And you could tell it was a vision because right after he saw himself not entering the promised land, the very next day he was murdered. Watch this video.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
As you saw, he didn't get to enter the promised land as he saw it in his vision. But he did see a future tense, and we could even go back biblically to explain. I personally believe that what Moses saw going to the mountaintop was more a spiritual, going to your third eye, to your Christ consciousness. And in order for us to be able to be in the promised land, Babylon, the mystery Babylon, must first fall. Follow me on this one. Don't clock out, because I have a lot to tell you, and I'm going to use the scriptures as well as macroeconomics. And I've spoken about this before. Keep in mind, I just had a close on $1 million home, and I made over $20-something thousand, guys. And I don't say this to brag. I say this, I could be doing other things for me personally. But as a humanitarian, I feel compelled to bring this alertness because we have rougher times ahead of us coming a lot sooner than most of you believe. I don't mean to scare you. I mean to prepare you spiritually so you could vibrate at the higher frequency, the spirit of love, and understand that the only way we could change certain things is by being in the spirit of love and love for humanity, not just for your race. So I'm going to begin with something I read last year, and I want to go over it so we can have it on video because that's how I keep records. Today, obviously, we are in February 17, 2026, and it says, "We are in the age of Aquarius, the time of revelation, the unveiling, the removal of the veil from our eyes. But this can only be seen through Christ consciousness, not religion, through love, truth, and discernment, by vibrating at a higher frequency in the spirit of love for humanity, not just your group or the color of your skin. America's days are numbered. The mystery Babylon will fall. The merchants of the earth grew rich from her excess. They drank her wine, fornicated with her power, prospered through her corruption. When she falls, the world will stand in disbelief, asking, who could fight against her? Yet her time has come. Revelations 18, verse 2. Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place for demons, a hunt for every unclean spirit. Jeffrey Epstein. America has become the headquarters of spiritual corruption, corporate greed, and imperial violence masquerading as righteousness. Revelations 18, verse 3. For all nations have drunk the wine of her passion, her sexual immorality, and the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her, and the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of her luxury living. The world became rich through America's dominance, exploitation, coercion, and financial system, and now they are entangled in her fall. Revelations 18:10. Alas, alas, you great city, in a single hour your judgment has come. The collapse will be sudden, shocking, and irreversible. The merchants, Revelations 18, verse from 11 to 13. The merchants of the earth weep and mourn for her, since no one buys their cargo anymore. The economic collapse is tied to trade, resources, and exploitation, not morality or freedom or free commerce. Revelations 18, 17 to 18. For in a single hour, all this wealth has been laid waste. And they cried out, what city was like the great city? The world will stand in disbelief when America, once untouchable, falls. Where are most of the merchants at? Wall Street. Where's Wall Street? New York City. Keep that in mind. Revelations 2, verse 9, and chapter 3, verse 9. Those who say they are Jews and are not, but are synagogues of Satan. This is not about a people of faith, but about corrupt power structures hiding behind religion to fool the world, especially religious extremists and fanatics who can't see beyond their indoctrination and programming. 2 Corinthians 11:14. Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Evil present itself as righteousness, humanitarian, and democracy. Revelation 13:11. It looked like a lamb, but spoke like a dragon. Who's alleging peace? Who's alleging around the world, like acting like a lamb to help the people, help the economy, but yet speaks like a dragon. What appears moral and gentle speaks with violence, deception, and domination. And it is evident now as the mask has been taken off and the person revealed. Eventually, if we allow the beast to continue, a digital ID, whether via RFID or other forms, will be created, and without that mark of the beast for the Christians to understand better, will not be able to buy or sell. The divine creator within your essence gives warning through signs, prophets, seers, and people with spiritual sensitivity. Just as the indigenous shamans did thousands of years before control religion was imposed and forced upon our tribes against our will at the cost of many lives. We are warned before. We have free will, and by choosing to change, we can change the outcome. America, wake up. Now, as you know me for a while, these are verses actually in the Bible, and you can see it says the world. The only people that are entangled with this nation is actually the United States. It's many other nations. Why? Through the global world currency. That did not exist before until 1944. Okay, in the Bretton Woods Agreement, the United States created the dollar. Okay, we had currency before, but it wasn't the way it was until 1944, where the world merged their currency with our dollar. Okay, especially after World War II, because obviously their funds was not secure, their economy was up and down, so they went and they merged their currency with our dollar. Our dollar was backed by gold, right? $35 was an ounce of gold. So it was measurable. It was tangible. And nations have faith in the United States because we were so far away from the large ocean. We couldn't be reached. And though we were involved in the wars, they couldn't touch us. But I want you to understand that before that, okay, this global family, this elite that go around from nation to nation, from Egypt to Rome to Spain to the Dutch, Netherlands to Britain, and then they came here in America. Okay, these families like the Rothschilds and their agents, J.P. Morgan, there are many, and I've written about this. They created it against the Constitution because it was unconstitutional. Centralized national bank was unconstitutional. So they had a secret meeting because they know if they would have been found out, they would have been hanged for treason. And that was in 1910 in Georgia. Okay, and they created a secret meeting in which they spoke about creating this centralized bank that our founding fathers, because of knowledge of history, they didn't want. And that was done in Jekyll's Island in Georgia. So in 1910 and then in 1913, they created the Federal Reserve System, in which it was 12 families that got together, okay, and created that system. And since that system was created until 2025, last year, it's probably even worse now, we lost 97% of our buying power. I've shown you this. Also, if you think we are getting better since 1913 to now, you could see the discrepancy as far as how much a house is worth compared to what you get paid. So just because your minimum wage or you think your income is slightly going up, it's not keeping up with inflation. So eventually it's going to be so much different, the disparity of what you get paid, what a house is worth, that your kids and grandkids will not be able to afford a home. And we're practically already there. That we've been lied to, we know this because we are overextended in debt. This nation was built on these system in which it got involved where it created the IMF, the World Bank, and lent out money to the nation via coercion to be participant of that dollar, to accept that mark. And those that did not accept it, they could not buy or sell, like what happened with Cuba when they found out and they got rid of them. Okay, and you see to this day they're still going through rough times until they join BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. But obviously the people that run this nation, that run the petrodollar, the dollar itself, they hold control. They don't want to release that power. So I kid you not when I say we are at war with BRICS, and eventually you will see the consequences. So follow me here, okay? Because what happened was when we created this coercion, okay, of the dollar, what happened was in 1944 all the way to 1971, we all of a sudden got involved in printing too much money. Thus, the more you print money, the more you devalue that currency, right? It goes down because you're creating monopoly money, right? So even though it was backed by gold, we took it off the gold standard in 1971. So it was no longer measurable. It wasn't a dollar. It became currency, fiat currency. So a lot of nations started dropping the dollar. So what we did was we got together we created OPEC, okay, and we spoke with Saudi Arabia because that was one of the biggest oil provider, all right. And in 1974, we created what you know today as the petrodollar. What that was a coercion in which it forced every nation, they wanted to buy oil because it was needed for transportation, for heating, for industrial companies to produce. They needed to convert their currency into dollars, right? So that was in 1974. Now that kept happening, and any nation that threatened that dollar, the United States, okay, or the people running this country, this evil family, greedy parasites, will go and attack them. That's what happened to Libya, Iraq. That's what happened to Syria, Cuba, Venezuela. So people are here blaming dictators, although they may be a slight factor to that. The fact is that these nations cannot buy or sell what they produce, then they are limited and they become poor. And many people have died because of the people running this nation. We have to be fact. They cannot get medicine. They cannot trade in food. There's different seasons. So obviously you got to be able to barter or trade. And we have stopped that through coercion, manipulation, through war. And that's what's going on. But what happened was in 2024, in June, this 50-year contract that Saudi Arabia had with the United States, it already expired, and they happened to join BRICS. Again, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. who are members, like Iran is a member. Venezuela was joining them. Cuba, Mexico has joined them. So what happened is the more they drop the dollar, it starts dropping in value. So America is overextended in debt. Don't fool yourself. This is a fact. I would challenge anyone. They overextended themselves, okay? And what they do is they keep printing dollars to be able to supply those debt. And they do that in the promise of other nations backing up our debt, because other nations lend us money, okay, through holdings. Okay, and through, there's a system called SWIFT, in which in order to trade in dollars and buy merchants to buy stuff, they need to be part of that system. But BRICS created their own system in China through CIPS, right, and BRICS Bridge, in which they're able to trade among themselves. They created their own digital currency, in which is backed by 40% by gold, so it's tangible, and the other 60% is backed by 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. So by the baskets of goods. So one nation cannot get more powerful than the other one, and it's fair and balanced based on those goods. So a lot of nations have been joining them, and by doing so, they have been dropping the dollar. Now, keep in mind that we used to be forced to convert their currency to dollar because they needed to get petroleum, right, and all the things that petroleum derives from, right? Fuel, diesel, right? Trucks, they need to bring food to the supermarket. They need diesel, right? They need fuel. It all comes from petrol. But because Iran produces oil, and we have put many negative sanctions, and many people have died, and we haven't provided medicine, they started circumventing, created their own system, okay? And they are part of BRICS, in which they produce oil. So now other nations that we have also put negative sanctions on are able to get the oil from Iran or Venezuela or Mexico. This is why I knew we were going to attack Venezuela. Now, the problem is that I myself had a vision. And I know it sounds weird, but I've been to the mountaintop. And I know that mountaintop is the higher consciousness, in which I've seen a lot in the future. That's why I write these things. And one thing you cannot deny, if you read this, you could go, look, this was done. This is 7 months ago now. It says 5 months here, but it's 7 months. And I'll read it. Like, come on. And it's a vision regarding that I had in 2006, and I spoken about it. Israel attacking Iran, and Iran retaliating with people running from fire, nuclear bombs or reactor in Israel being hit, many of them, a major war with Russia involving many nations, artificial intelligence getting more advanced down to nanobite technology that affects people on a microscopic level, stripping them of their free will. Massive earthquake. I could go on and on. Look, secret internet trials like Zoom. Government agents. Look at here. Government agents picking people up before sunrise, including innocent people, eventually even me, to question me. This is something I saw years ago. Isn't that what is happening right now? They created an Agent ICE. Isn't that elites and politicians being exposed for sexual misconduct and other crimes and being blackmailed? That's why I know our whole system has been compromised. And it has to do a lot with the fake Zionist regime, with Israel, the terrorist state, that a lot of you have been misled, and they are not the chosen people. They are not part of God. They're just evil people hiding under religion, like I said in Revelation chapter 2 and verse 9, and Revelation chapter 3 verse 9, which you need to read. A divided military and civil war at home. The Mexican border will be used to keep us out, not them out, keep us in. Our cities bombed, referring to Mystery Babylon. That's why one of the reasons I moved out. Russian troops on American soil, with some Americans fighting and others welcome them as liberator. This is years ago. Now, if you think about what's going on, wouldn't that be more probable? How many media is controlled by these Zionist elite? So you don't hear the truth. You're being fighting among each other, right? Republicans and Democrats, Fox, CNN, they own both. They give us contrarian views, and you're fighting among your brother, your sister. You're being manipulated. Just like a video that I did regarding 100 red ants and 100 black ants. What happens when you put them in a jar? They're peaceful, but when you shake the jar, what they do? They start killing each other. Who's shaking the jar? That's the title. Look at it, guys. So I know in my heart that we are going to invade Iran. As the vision that I saw, if it's really true, we're going to be so embarrassed and humiliated, and the Zionist regime in Israel will be destroyed, will will be demolished. People are going to be running up the mountains trying to get away from fire. There's going to be a major war. I hope not, guys, but it's going to involve Russia and China, North Korea. And they're going to eventually end up coming even in our own lands. Guys, nobody wants this, but the truth is, if this is Mystery Babylon, and we know for a fact that our global currency has the whole world, most of the world's Western world, that is, depends on it. What do you think will happen if we attack Iran? When they block the Strait of Hormuz, when 25% of the world's oil goes through there, our oil will go up drastically. What that means to you, your food will go up drastically, but because the trailers and trucks that bring the food to the groceries, they need fuel. So those costs are going to be passed down to you. And that's assuming Russia doesn't attack us, or China. What else is going to happen? Your heating, your utility, a lot of it uses fuel. So we are going to be drastically impacted, guys. So I'm letting you know what's coming. But the truth is, like I said again, Babylon will come down. And what nation sells to the world? Isn't it the United States? Do you know right now that India, okay, they were making about 1.3 billion out of Iran. And we went and coerced India not to buy from Iran and not to allow oil, and now we put 25% tariff. Well, India, this is just recently in January. So India said, wait a minute, we export to the United States 120 billion. 25% tariff taxes. So how much? Compared to the 1.3 billion we make from Iran. So obviously who they went for just now? They went for the United States. They worked together in cahoots in order. They just stopped 3 ships, oil ships, one of those tankers, 3 tankers. And what they did was illegal. But why? Because it's about money. This nation being run by families, okay, that are very powerful. This is why we will always be at war, because they profit while you, the taxpayer, pays for it. While you, the American citizen, die for wars, not for America as you think. You die for corporate greed, politicians, these people that have been bought and paid for by Zionist elites, as well as other Jesuits elites that are running America, pretty much running most of the world. Okay, so the time will come where all of us will join, but eventually Babylon will fall, and we're going to join. And I believe that this is the promised land, because if you look even at the scriptures, by the way, this scriptures here, this is the Bible. It has been changed. It has been mistranslated, right? It went from Aramaic to Hebrew, from Hebrew into Greek, from Greek into Latin, from Latin to English. So it's been mistranslated. Then King James added to that, besides the Council of Nicaea, which was in 325, where they picked what books was going to be here, and some books they're taken out throughout time. But the first 5 books here, even though a lot of it's Jewish books here, the first 5 books, Genesis, Numbers, Genesis, Exodus, Levitico, Numero, Deuteronomy. That's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, right? Those are the book, the holy book. It's called the Torah. Okay, that was the Jewish book, and a lot has been changed. But if you look at the beginning in Genesis, it speaks about more than one God. It's called Elohim, gods, Elohim, not El, but Elohim. And it says, let us make man in our image. But that being said, I believe the Bible has been so mistranslated, because if you really want to think about those Christians that worship the Jewish God per se, right now, books of Numbers, chapter 31, verse 15 to 18. You look at when in Median, have you allowed old women to live? This is regarding the war. When they enter the alleged promised land, that I don't believe that was the promised land, which is what you call today Israel, right? Which was Judea, and there was 12 tribes. Well, it says, have you allowed all the women to live? Now therefore, kill every male and the little ones, and kill every woman who has known a man by lying with them. But all the young girls, virgin girls, that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourself. I don't believe that a God Almighty would allow that. I don't believe that was the promised land, because in order for them to enter that land, they needed to kill, they needed to rape, they needed so much stuff to happen. And I got many verses here that I could show you, that you could actually pull up in ChatGPT if you don't believe me. You know, from Corinthians chapter 11, 14. There's a lot. My point is that, guys, the promised land was something in the future, and we have not yet entered to the promised land, because Babylon, Mystery Babylon, must first fall, and unfortunately we live in her. I believe this main city, obviously, is New York City, because that's where Wall Street is at. So I believe in my heart that something drastically will happen, whether it's a false flag, another false flag, whatever. The point is something will happen. But if you look at, again, the Jeffrey Epstein, like I saw in that vision, like I told you years ago, and I was right. Look, it's happening. A lot of the stuff I said is happening, guys. It's not a coincidence, because I was used to bring alertness, to alert you to, you could elevate yourself to that Christ consciousness, and you gotta love humanity. Don't be fooled. They're using immigrants to fool you. I've written about this as well. This has been done before in the 1930s, in the 1950s as well, and we keep using immigrants as an excuse because they don't want to focus, we the people, to focus on the elites. That's the one robbing you and robbing America. We're sending billions to Israel. If you want to support Trump, I just want you to think about this, okay? Let's forget about Jeffrey Epstein and all that, because anyone could allege anything, right? But for a fact, by his own words, Trump has sent out billions of dollars, like every other one. It has nothing to do with Democrats or Republicans. Remember that. We're being used to fight among each other. We have sent billions out to a Zionist genocidal regime in Israel to kill the Palestinians, right? The real descendants of Jesus. Even that, this book that speaks about Jesus that was married with Mary Magdalene, had a daughter, Sarah, but you don't have that here. And for those of you who say, oh, like the sex was evil or something when it was created by the Almighty so we could produce itself. You really think a 33-year-old man that at the time was allegedly, according to this scripture, was a rabbi. Do you know a rabbi had to be married? They used to marry them from young. Unlike that you pick somebody to get married. Because if not, you will consider homosexual. Obviously, you will be stoned to death back then. So you honestly believe that for you to think that something natural is so bad, it's like saying like Jesus didn't take a shit. Right? He had to go to the bathroom. So you people are beyond unlogical. That's a fact. So you need to work, wake up. I believe the promised land is in the future and eventually will happen. And as you saw Revelation chapter 2 and 3, okay, there's going to be an exchange of wealth. And this nation that has robbed all the other nations through the dollar, through fractional lending. Do you know what fractional lending is? Look it up. I've spoken about this as well. So we're not just forcing them and passing all our debts. We keep printing, getting wars, and passing that debt to many nations via the dollar. Okay? We are also creating what is called fractional lending. So the money multiplies. So we multiply what they owe, and we keep lending them money that we do not have, or these people, elites, don't have, bringing more death and destruction and poverty to these nations. So whenever you see online, you see like African nations, right? Poor, right? With flies all over them. Or you see what's going on in Gaza and all that. We created all that. This nation, this system, the Antichrist system created that. And it's going to get worse for all of us before it gets better. You need to wake up. And again, the only way to wake up is to be in the spirit of love. You have to go to the mountaintop. Like the biblical version, Moses went to the mountaintop. It was more spiritual way. He saw a bush that never went on fire. It's that third eye. It's the mountaintop, that Christ consciousness. Okay? And then he saw down. When he started coming down, he saw everybody was worshiping pagan gods, like a golden goat on fire. Just like what Iran did the other day, put that Baal on fire. And Israel is livid. These are the times we are in. Wake up, guys. That's all I have, because it's been a lot of time and I don't want to make this longer. But as you saw in the vision, the time has come. Don't be fooled, because I've written also about the economy. We lost 97% of our buying power. You saw what I said. People are dropping the dollar because they joining BRICS and they're joining that system where they're not putting negative sanctions on them like we are. We've been robbing the world, and karma is real and has come back to collect. And this nation will collapse because our coercion cannot live forever. And the people need to be free. Trump, Satan, Netanyahu, let my people go. Let my people go. My people shall be free. We the people shall be free. Take care. Bye-bye.